Good evening. Welcome, spooky children, to the Midnight Graveyard. I'm your favorite ghoul, and here's my sneaky, sexy familiar with you again to talk about the newest movie we've seen. It's What's Inside. So grab yourself some stomach bile and settle in to join us.
Welcome, friends.
And foes.
Yeah.
You never know.
So what did you think of the movie?
So it's What's Inside.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed this movie a lot. It's not your typical horror movie. It's more of like a psychological thriller. Yeah. Dark and twisted. But I enjoyed it very much.
I also thought it was pretty good. Like a nerve-wracking kind of, right? Like vibe rather than like a horror or like visceral fear. It's more of like a psychological kind of fear is what I felt. I think in that one. I felt like it was a pretty standard body swapping, like, thriller, you know? But the way they approached it was a little bit unique in the technology that was employed for it. Obviously we're going to give some spoilers here, but try to have the conversation in a way that it still makes it worthwhile to see the film, because it is probably worth watching if you're into horror or thrillers or body swapping even.
If you're not into horror or thrillers or body swapping, I don't know what you're doing here.
Yeah, you're on the wrong channel.
So this is a new movie on Netflix. It's 2024. Watch it with your Netflix subscription. It is in English and very modern. So it's very much a modern body swapping story, I would say. And when we first spoke about it, I really liked it. It reminds me of Bodies. And I really enjoyed that one too, because it's very suspenseful, it's very playful, and a little bit absurd and ridiculous, and also deals with this class of elite people in a way that is pleasurable to consume, because they're a little bit separate from the average person in that sense. And I think that's kind of nice, being thrown into some type of mansion by somebody's rich daddy.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to add, is that both also had elements of
not this daddy,
like I don't know, age. Like they're youthful, sort of playful, fun kind of movies, right? With Bodies, they're all like early to mid 20s. I felt like kind of the same vibe here. They're like, some of them are in professional careers and they're doing well from what it looks like on the outside, and other people are still working like the job they had in high school, basically, or whatever, so you have some of that weird time in your life stuff that you go through in your like early to mid 20s very often.
It's that mix of partying and going hard, but then not too hard because you're aging and you've now got different responsibilities.
Yeah, people are starting to get paired off and married, and maybe somebody's having a kid, and so got that job that, like, oh man, he's a big deal now, and like, but you also have then like other people in the group that are like, yeah, I got the degree, I haven't gotten work in it, and yeah, I'm still, selling drinks behind the bar at the local bar or whatever, so you have some conflict with the characters, like before it even starts getting into anything thrilling or scary. There's tension that they're able to introduce between the characters, which amplifies the suspense and whatnot that the horror injects into the film. And I felt Bodies was very similar, where it was like young adults and that like coming of age time where if you have a friend group, like not everybody's on the same page at all anymore. And that's weird because like for your life, most of your friends are in your grade and they're doing the things that you're doing. And so when you're out of college for a year or two and people start getting married or start getting a really good professional job, it can cause issues in the friend group because other people are like still struggling. And now it's like, oh, before we had a lot of things in common by default, basically. And so now it's like, well, what's our relationship really like? How is this going to work now that we don't just have a bunch of stuff in common by default? Are we really that close, as close as we had thought, you know? And that's kind of a scary time to live through. I felt both films sort of touched on that early enough that I was able to like pick up on that. They were able to like sort of get you like rankled some early with that life stuff, you know? And then
yeah, just building tension early on and showing this historical relationship. I hate that phrase, coming of age.
I'm not a huge fan either.
Gross.
Not a huge fan either, but
Ew.
that's what they call it.
I like when they're not of age. They fit nicer in the oven, baked into pies.
But we thought instead of discussing so much of the plot for this one, we would talk more about like the concept of body swapping and how it gets used in some of these films and what our personal thoughts are on some of those ideas and like tropes or concepts, because you see it in a bunch of different films. What did you have?
Oh, I was just going to say that we had already thought of some questions. So, obviously the most generic one is, what would that feel like to have your consciousness swapped into another's body?
Right, physical form.
And that led to lots of questions because there's different variables, like what you feel in that form then. Like, do you feel the aches of the body, right? Like they sprained this, and so now you feel it. Like, is that a feature of it? They took too many drugs, and so now you are fucked up, but you weren't before. So that's an element. And then, is it a drug in and of itself to then be in someone else's body?
I mean, yeah, experiences, right? Like, that's a good point. It is sort of like a drug, I would imagine, right? Because it's a unique sort of experience and perspective, and people get hooked on, they get hooked on feelings, right? That's why people abuse substances. They like the way that it makes them feel, or they can't stand the way that they feel without it. But this isn't really any different. If you have a surge of emotion and feeling after having this experience, you're going to be more likely to do it again if it was a positive surge. So I could totally see it being like an addictive thing, like a drug.
Like a pleasurable, yeah.
Right. Even if the experience itself isn't pleasurable, I could see the concept of it, the idea of it, and the possibility of it being pleasurable, right? Like, still making it addictive, almost like some people overuse psychedelics. Not every trip's fun. Not every trip's great. Some of them, they're difficult. It's almost like work, right? Or it's scary and hard. But the people I know that have overused psychedelics, they have those experiences. They still get into a space where they're overusing the thing, even though sometimes it's not good, right? But the possibility is the thing, I think, that gets them wrapped up into the overuse, because it's but I could have another great one, like I had that one time or whatever, It's interesting.
Yeah, I felt uncomfortable in this film with some of the ways that these bodies became tools for the consciousness pleasure. It was essentially borderline on some types of completely inappropriate and illegal actions.
Well, yeah, I mean, the legality of it.
And that was weird. Like, and to think that you would get together with your friends and do these things in their form was extra uncomfortable. So there was that element of just cringe, creepiness, added to the mix of trying to stay on top of whose form you were looking at. And that's something that I don't know. I can't imagine being in someone else's body, like with my consciousness, though I definitely think that our consciousness exists beyond these forms, that this is a loner and...
Right, that a soul exists, basically. Right, because that's what we're talking about swapping here, because it's
a soul, yeah. But then also to think, like, the pieces of you, are you from this form? So you carry it into another form, and you still retain all your memories, all your experiences and things, and applying that knowledge to this new form is very unique and weird.
That's one of the issues that I have with the body swapping stuff is, like, okay, I can buy into we're taking the soul from one body, putting it in another body, right? Mm-hmm. My issue is that if you were to do that, right, your brain is part of your body. Mm-hmm. So no, you don't get to carry your memories over.
Right.
You would effectively have no idea even that you were in a different body, right? Because you wouldn't have a memory of your other body, because you don't really have a memory of, right, because that's your brain, not your, like, essence of self. If we're just taking the essence of self and dropping it into another body, it would just try to make sense of the world around you, just like you do as an individual now. So there was some weird stuff with that where I'm like, I don't fully understand how they're remembering things, and like I like the concept of like, oh, like I don't use, but then I get swapped into a body of somebody that smokes, and so now I'm high, and that's silly and weird, and like that's all like cool, but I think there's maybe some space for a film that explores this idea of like, if the essence of self or a soul does exist, what does a body swap look like if that's what's like truly what's being swapped? Because I think, and I don't know, but obviously I think we would see likely a lot of the same sort of like behaviors and things, because it's the same body, it's the same brain, right? Like the only thing that's different that I could say is like easily identifiable would be potentially like your moral compass, because that's like a thing that sort of intersects both the brain and the essence of self, in my personal opinion. I think that might be a very very interesting movie to see or make.
And thanks to our sponsor, Essence of Self, for making this a success. We're indulging in Essence of Self at the moment.
But yeah, I don't think I would not have any desire to swap bodies. I don't think. And I don't love the body that I have perfectly. I mean, like, it's okay.
I love the body.
Yeah, it's got issues.
I do think, however, it links to my beliefs in afterlife, or whatever you want to use to define it, in that essentially body swapping is how I kind of believe that we exist, in just this almost never-ending game of body swapping, but in different realms of reality, so to speak. And so that, thinking of that in this type of film was just interesting for me. And I also wondered, if you took some of your memories, would they slowly start to fade away into this new form? And I don't know, it opened a lot of introspective thoughts on that concept of, body swapping, but also just consciousness being in different forms at different times and what that might be.
If you woke up as a different person than you were yesterday, would you have any idea?
Right.
Right, like we said earlier, if it's just like the soul or the essence of self that's being transferred, this could be happening to all of us every single night, right? You would wake up with the brain of whatever body you got dropped into, and you would have the memories of that brain and body. You would assume, rationally, logically, that this is the body that I've been in this whole time, because I have all these memories and experiences, and I remember being me for 39 years, right? But no, because actually you were them yesterday with that brain and body's memories and experiences and knowledge of self that you believed you had for however many years that one's been alive, right? But every time you go to sleep or lose consciousness, right, there is theoretically the possibility that you're waking up as a different person than you were the day before. There's no real way for us
to ever know.
To be sure that I am the me that I was yesterday. And that's a strange idea, but I do believe that there isn't any way to actually know for sure. I was me yesterday, and I'll still be me again tomorrow. I think it's just as likely that I was everyone yesterday or anyone yesterday and will be every and anyone tomorrow.
So in my cult, we believe that practicing magic allows you to transcend to seeing yourselves in these different forms and connecting the lives you've lived. The Cult of Ghouls in the Midnight Graveyard. You had one final idea that you expressed about this film, if you recall. You mentioned the uncomfortableness and greediness that would happen if the power to swap bodies was left in the hands of super rich, privileged people in our society.
Right, it's the get out problem.
Yes.
Right, when we first figured out what the movie was about and how it worked, it's like a piece of technology that enables you to take the essence of self or soul from one physical form and put it into another physical form. And immediately I thought, well, this is going to be co-opted by people with the most resources, and they're going to be stealing the lives of small children. I imagine you don't want to go from being 60 years old to 6 months old, but you might have a desire to go from 60 to 12 or 14, right? And you transfer your money to an account so that when you switch, you still have those resources, right? The only thing you're leaving behind is that identity or whatever, but really so much of that is sort of bought and paid for that as long as you have those resources, you can likely then just live another life, right? And so that's the scariest, I think, idea out of the whole body swapping potential, is that if it was a thing, it would almost definitely be used for nefarious purposes like that, where you're stealing the entire life of a person, because you're going to say, all right, I'm going to take this 12-year-old and I'm going to drop him in my 70-year-old body so he can die in 2 years and I can start back over again at 12 years old.
It's a cross between the Reptilians and Benjamin Button. Last thought I had was, wouldn't it be interesting if this tool could be used on any living thing, we'll say, thing loosely, also to encompass, plants and stuff.
Right.
And what would that mean? Could you, it would be really cool to be a flower for a day and then change into something else. Could you? And would it require you to trust yourself in the hands of another? So, you need to care for me because today I'm going to exist as our tabletop flower. Yeah. And then I want to be our dog. And
what would the mycelium network say when it takes over my body, right? Like an ancient colony of mushroom.
Yeah.
Right?
And since we're all so closely linked genetically, potentially this could exist. Like, you could safely swap. So it would be bizarre, like absolutely bizarre.
What would it be like to be that mycelium network? So what I was going to finish saying, not only what would it potentially have to say, I think that's fascinating to think about plants and fungus, like they have these networks, they sort of speak to each other, even the plants and the fungus, and so what would they say, but also what would that perspective be like to be in the form of a thing that's connected to like thousands or millions of other similar things, that's also communicating with the other plant life that's nearby. Fascinating. I think it would be very, very cool. That's another idea. I think you could do a movie of like body swapping, but like you said, in a non-traditional form, like switching.
With any living thing.
Right, into a cow. I mean, what would that be like?
Yeah.
What do the cows have to say?
Have a whole farm.
Yep.
I think it would be fascinating.
Lots of possibility.
Definitely check out the movie. It's What's Inside on Netflix. And I have rated it 4 skulls, I guess. I was trying to think of something that went with
4 souls.
4 souls.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5 souls.
I think my rating would be like 3 out of 5 souls, probably. I just feel like there was some opportunities that were maybe not taken. Maybe they played some things a little more safe than I would have liked. I like exploration and risk-taking, especially in art and media. Anything else?
I like basically all horror films because they all take you on fun adventures of different things. So 4 out of 5 souls. And buy your Essence of Self now. It is buy one get one free at the moment, so enjoy. We'll see you next time.